In a modern world where refrigeration is a basic necessity, the Amish stand as a fascinating exception. They live without most forms of electricity, including freezers and refrigerators, yet manage to store and preserve meat year-round. For many outsiders, this raises a simple but intriguing question. How do they do it? The answer is rooted in tradition, resourcefulness, and a way of life that values simplicity, self-reliance, and community wisdom passed down over generations. For the Amish, food preservation isn't just a chore, it's a sacred responsibility tied to survival and stewardship. Preserving meat without refrigeration may sound impossible in today's fast-paced, convenience-driven world. But in Amish communities scattered across Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana, it's a well-practiced art. They've perfected it through a mix of ancient techniques and seasonal timing, allowing them to eat well throughout harsh winters and long summers without relying on a single watt of electricity. Whether it's pork, beef, chicken, or venison, the Amish know how to cure, can, smoke, salt, and dry meat in ways that preserve flavor and safety, often for months or even years. Their methods may seem old-fashioned, but they're remarkably effective, and in many ways more sustainable than modern refrigeration. In this series, we'll explore how the Amish turn raw meat into shelf-stable food, without a fridge, without fancy machines, and without compromising their deeply rooted values. Butchering Day. In Amish communities, preserving meat starts with perfect timing. Unlike the modern world, where meat can be frozen at any moment, the Amish must plan meticulously, because once an animal is butchered, the clock starts ticking. That's why butchering is a seasonal ritual, not a random decision. Most Amish families choose to slaughter livestock during late fall or early winter, when the air is cold enough to naturally refrigerate the meat. Temperatures in the 30s and 40s slow down spoilage, buying precious time before preservation steps begin. Butchering Day is a community event. Neighbors gather at dawn, each person with a task. Some handle the slaughter, others prepare the equipment, and many more assist with cleaning, cutting, or packing. Nothing goes to waste. Every part of the animal is valued, not just for meat, but for making soap, broth, or lard. Once the animal is slaughtered and skinned, the meat is cut into manageable pieces and either set aside for curing or immediately prepped for canning or smoking. It's labor-intensive work, and it's always done with reverence. There are no machines humming in the background, just the quiet sound of blades slicing through fresh meat, children watching attentively, and elders giving quiet instructions honed over decades. Canning meat. One of the most trusted ways the Amish preserve meat without refrigeration is by pressure canning. The process starts immediately after butchering. Meat is cut into cubes or strips, then packed tightly into sterilized glass jars. Unlike fruits, Amish don't usually pre-cook the meat. They use a method called raw packing, which allows the meat to cook inside the sealed jar during pressure canning. This preserves not only the meat, but also its natural juices, creating rich broths or gravies that are perfect for soups, stews, or casseroles later on. Amish homes are usually equipped with large stovetops powered by wood, propane, or kerosene, where pressure canners, heavy-duty pots with tight sealing lids, are used. The canner raises the internal temperature to 240 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, killing bacteria like botulism and sealing the jar with a vacuum-tight lid. Once cooled and sealed, these jars are stored in root cellars, basements, or pantry shelves, where they remain safe and nutritious for months or even years without refrigeration. The Amish often can beef, chicken, pork, and even sausage links. Canned meat is a staple during the winter months, when fresh food is scarce and convenience is crucial. Smoking meat, flavor, preservation, and tradition. If canning is the workhorse of Amish meat preservation, then smoking is its soul. This age-old method doesn't just keep meat from spoiling, it transforms it, adding deep flavor and character that no refrigerator could ever provide. The Amish typically build their own smokehouses, small wooden structures tucked behind barns or near the edge of their property. Inside, there are metal hooks, wooden racks, and stone floors. No electric lights, no machines, just meat and smoke. Meat for smoking is first salted or brined. Large slabs of pork, hams, or sausages are rubbed down with a mix of salt, sugar, and spices. This step not only draws out moisture, which bacteria need to grow, but begins the flavoring process. Then comes the smoke. Using hickory, applewood, or oak, the Amish build slow-burning fires that generate thick, cool smoke. Unlike high-temperature smoking used in BBQ, the Amish use cold smoking, which can last for several days to several weeks, depending on the type of meat and the weather. The smoke naturally dries and coats the meat, acting as both a preservative and a deterrent to insects or mold. Smoked meats, particularly hams and sausages, are then hung in cool, dry spaces where they can last for months without spoiling, especially in winter. When stored correctly, some smoked meats have been known to stay edible for up to a year. Salt curing, preserving with nature's oldest ingredient. Before refrigeration, salt was survival, and among the Amish, it still is. Salt curing is one of the oldest and most reliable meat preservation techniques, and it remains a staple practice in many Amish communities today. The process is simple in theory, but requires time, precision, and respect for detail. Large cuts of meat, especially pork, are carefully trimmed, cleaned, and then packed in layers of coarse salt. Sometimes a mix of salt, sugar, black pepper, and spices is used to create what's known as a dry cure. The meat is either placed in wooden boxes, crocks, or barrels and covered completely, with no part left exposed. As the salt works its way into the flesh, it draws out moisture, the key to stopping bacterial growth. The curing process can take from several days to a full month, depending on the thickness of the meat and the season. Cold winter air helps slow spoilage and allows the salt to work more gradually. The Amish often cure bacon slabs, hams, and sides of pork in unheated pantries or sheds during the late fall, when temperatures are cold but not freezing. They monitor the process carefully, sometimes flipping the meat, rubbing in more salt, and checking for signs of mold or softness. Drying and dehydrating, turning meat into long-term survival food. In addition to canning, smoking, and salt curing, the Amish also rely on drying and dehydrating, a method that transforms meat into lightweight, long-lasting staples that need no refrigeration and almost never go to waste. This method is especially useful for smaller cuts of meat, wild game, or leftovers from butchering days. Amish families often make what we might call jerky, but theirs is a far cry from the commercial kind wrapped in plastic. It's rustic, handmade, and dried using sun, air, and fire, depending on the weather and season. To begin, thin strips of lean meat are cut with the grain, marinated in brine or a simple salt and vinegar solution, and often seasoned with black pepper, garlic, or maple syrup. These strips are then laid across racks in drying sheds or hung near warm, smoky stoves. In cooler months, some families suspend the meat from drying rods over wood-fired cook stoves, taking advantage of the rising heat to slowly remove moisture. The process is meticulous. Over several days, the meat gradually loses its water content, which helps prevent bacterial growth. No chemicals, no nitrates, just time, air, and heat. The end result is a tough, chewy and flavorful meat product that can last for months, even up to a year if kept dry. Root cellars and cool storage, nature's refrigerator. Beyond preservation techniques like canning, smoking, and drying, the Amish also depend on something incredibly simple and effective: the earth itself. Root cellars, those cool, dark, underground storage spaces, are a crucial part of Amish life. They don't just hold vegetables and canned goods. In many communities, they're also used to store cured and smoked meats, acting as a natural refrigerator without the hum of electricity. Built beneath homes or adjacent to barns, Amish root cellars are dug deep into the ground, often lined with stone or timber. Their constant, cool temperature, typically between 32 degrees Fahrenheit and 50 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, makes them ideal for storing food that needs protection from heat, light, and moisture. Cured hams are hung from ceiling beams. Jars of canned chicken, pork, and beef are stacked in neat rows. Even smoked sausages are strung along the walls, where the air is still, dry, and cool. It's not uncommon to find shelves full of lard, tallow, and salted meats, each carefully labeled and rotated throughout the seasons. The Amish understand the rhythms of the land. They know which cellars hold a steadier temperature, which areas get too damp in summer, and how to adjust storage locations depending on humidity and airflow. It's a science, yes, but also a form of generational wisdom passed from father to son, mother to daughter. Simplicity, stewardship, and the power of knowing how. As we wrap up this look into how the Amish preserve meat without refrigeration, one thing becomes abundantly clear. Their methods aren't just about storing food, they're about living in harmony with the land, the seasons, and their creator. In a world where most people panic at the thought of a power outage or empty grocery shelves, the Amish operate on a completely different plane. They don't fear losing modern conveniences because they never depended on them in the first place. Their strength lies in knowledge, time-tested, hands-on, deeply rooted wisdom passed down over centuries. Canning, smoking, salt curing, drying, root cellaring, each of these methods reflects a mindset of stewardship over consumption. The Amish don't preserve meat just to stockpile it. They do it to nourish their families through long winters. They do it because waste is sinful, because self-reliance is holy, because when your life isn't run by machines, you learn to work with your hands and trust in God's rhythm. It's not always easy. It's labor-intensive, seasonal, and often unpredictable, but it's resilient. In a society obsessed with convenience and speed, the Amish remind us of the value of slowing down, preparing ahead, and depending on each other rather than on corporations or cold appliances. Their pantries are full, not just because they've worked hard, but because they've worked together. Every jar, every slab of smoked pork, every salted ham tells a story of cooperation, tradition, and quiet faith. So the next time you open your refrigerator without a second thought, ask yourself, what would you do if it didn't exist tomorrow? The Amish already know, and maybe, just maybe, their old ways hold the answers our modern world forgot to ask.